Recently made a video on a break, that was close. Recently made a video on the Roland SE-02 Studio Electronics Boutique Bizarreness, the Minimoog clone, showcasing some of the preset sounds available on these and some of the sounds you can make with them, which is pretty cool. And I also did a review video of this, the Behringer Model D. Again, another Minimoog clone. Behringer bad, Roland good. Strange, isn't it? I did those with a view to getting rid of one of them because I don't need two of them, really. Nobody needs two of them. I don't even like the sound of Moogs. I don't need any of them, really. I've just sold all my Moogs. They just don't tickle my pickle. Sorry, Moog. It's just a personal preference. Anyway, one of the reasons I make these videos is often to talk myself into selling a piece of gear or out of selling a piece of gear, and I made these videos specifically on these two being the Moog clones. However, in the meantime I found myself selling my actual Moogs, the Mother 32 and the Drummer from another mother, and keeping both of these Minimoog fucking copies. Still don't know why I've got either of them. I mean, I know where the boxes are, you know. My eBay seller rating is tip top. Stick around and find out why. Oh yeah. I mean, you don't have to stick around and find out why, obviously. You know, that's just kind of, it's like a hook, really, just to kind of get you to watch the rest of the... Okay. Oh, that one. Oh, that one. Hey. Brilliant. Tiddly thing. You see that get my teeth? Shit, isn't it? Right, I think that's enough of this shit. So, the Roland SE-02, released 2017 as a joint venture between Roland and Studio Electronics. The SE-02 was the first release in what became the new Boutique Designer series, and so far it's the only release in that series also, which makes the SE-02 the only Boutique which isn't a miniaturized version of one of Roland's own classics. Making it a clone of the Minimoog was hardly surprised though, with this being a collaboration with Studio Electronics, whose own SE-1 was a recreation of the analogue Minimoog, only brought up to modern standards, or at least modern for 1994 when it was released. Now apparently Studio Electronics obtained licenses to use Moog, filters, VCOs and the VCA in the SE-1, and even had Bob Moog checking in on the thing from time to time. Now, although they had those licenses present and used that equipment in the SE-1, how much of that was actually carried over to the SE-2 is it's a little bit uncertain. I'm going to keep this short, so I'll get straight to the pros and cons from a user's perspective. Starting with the interface, which obviously falls into both categories here. The cramped front panel of Lilliputian knobs does at least benefit from one knob per function operation, which is just as well, because can you imagine trying to menu dive on one of these? The three types of cross modulation is just great. Again, as a user, the tempo syncable delay was another great feature, and I find myself using it a lot. Now, I'm a huge fan of Roland FX, especially the delays, and I use them almost perpetually on the MX1 mixer. So carrying on with the pros, pattern and sound saving is another huge bonus on these things. In fact, even the presets are inspirational. I think they really showcase the insane variety of sounds that this monosynth is capable of. Other notable pros include the addition of a pretty good sequencer, really, which is capable of parameter automation, amongst lots of other things. It's worth checking the sequencer out separately. They're pretty amazing. It also handles both MIDI and audio over USB, which, coupled with the extend, it can be used as an interface for the gear, which is always nifty. And the connectivity of CV, VCF CV and gate inputs, along with trig in and out, is also a nice touch. Now obviously the list of good stuff goes even further, such as temperature stability and automatic tuning, but I'm trying to stick to just the parts which stand out most to me as a user. Also, it's fairly sturdy. It's got a nice metal lid there. Oh, a tight knob. So before we get to the cons, firstly, and this isn't a gripe really as a user, more just an observation, and that's that it's not strictly the analog synth which Roland implies it is, but it's very much a hybrid. The LFO, the portmanteau, the envelope or contour generators and tuning, they're all very much digital. Again, this is not particularly a criticism, but something that Roland seems to constantly forget to mention. Some of the actual cons for me are obviously the fact it's so bloody small, but that's unavoidable when packing so many features into a boutique form factor. The next con is very much a Marmite point and one I made in my review of the Behringer Model D, and that's that it sounds a lot like a Minimoog. Even though Studio Electronics designed the VCO with ARP and Oberheim elements, it still has the heavy Minimoog overtones, and I'm not a huge fan, I keep saying this, of the Moog sound. Sorry Moog. Another con is actually with the sequencer, which is just not as intuitive as it could be, and using it often feels akin to the menu diving with the microKORG with such tiny graphics and labels. Overall though, I'm still impressed by these. They're still great machines. Not as cheap as they could be. Price wise, as of now, so mid 2021, they're around 400 quid new, so 100 quid less than when they were first released 4 years ago. Pick them up for around 300-ish on the used market, occasionally when you find them on the used market. So no, they're not exactly cheap. But that said, you get an awful lot in something so small. But there are still plenty of other alternatives worth considering. While doing some research on these, if you're interested in them, as well as the info from Roland, also check out the Studio Electronics page, as it gives a much better idea of what this synth truly is. Also, search for Sunshine Jones's missing manual, and take a look at the EXT box designed as an add-on, as well as the editor which is available for these now. Anyway, I hope this has been of interest. As ever, drop any comments and questions down below. A like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this. Many thanks.